Hey fellas, what's going on today? I've got another little update on the Mobile Velocity number 10 aviation oil that I've been using as an anti-foaming agent in this torch. Today we're going to be doing a dual experiment. My good friend Mescal has found himself intrigued by my fire brick video, and he was interested to know what would happen if we measured a sample of the fire brick and then subjected it to the torture we witnessed and then weighed the specimen again to see how much of it boiled off, because we were literally boiling fire brick in that little demonstration. You can see here I knocked off the cone thing that it created, but that goes pretty deep down into the brick. The camera can't even really see it. I had it at an odd angle coming up from below there. So where is the other block at? Okay, I lost the other sample, but at any rate, we are going to weigh this sample up. I don't know if I should have teared that out first. I don't think it really matters. It was like 6.54 grams. Okay, now it's 5. Okay, 6.54 grams. Dang it, we're going to need that 10th in this experiment. What's going on here? Seeing if it's wind sensitive, and it is. There's a little bit of wind blowing around in here. So we're going to go ahead and call that what we saw it. We're going to set this torch up here, and I'm going to let this thing burn. See, I've got a heat sink of some wet nap there. I'm going to continually be adding water to that so that I don't get a flashback from overheating my tip. But at any rate, this thing's going to sit here for about a half hour, because I want to do a good foam test on this thing. If this thing will run for a half hour at 12 amps output, it doesn't foam over, that's going to pretty much prove that this stuff is not soapifying. It is not reacting with the electrolyte, the sodium hydroxide, and making soap. You can see I have very little oil in there. I don't know if you can see the sheen. I found that less is better. If you put too much oil in there, the bubbles don't have time to pop. And another interesting characteristics that I've finally come to the conclusion on is that the surface area of this container, just the diameter itself, is the only area available for those bubbles to pop. So if this thing was laid on its side, the surface area of the bubbles would be far huger. It'd be 3-4 times the size. And the residence time of the bubbles is the problem here. We got to give that bubble some time to pop, and if we only got this diameter here, this small cylinder of an area of surface area for the foam to pop, that has a very limited gas discharge before the foam column rises to my discharge line. So the design in itself is flawed by nature, but we're working around that with this anti-foam, the oil, and hopefully this works out. I have not yet done any examination of the electrolyzer, and we probably won't do that for a year, maybe even longer. It might be 10 years before I crack that electrolyzer back open. I will be reversing the polarity occasionally, because the anode is always going to get dirty on an electrolyzer. The cathode is always going to stay clean. So if you see here how I've designed this, where I can easily swap out the connections. And periodically doing that will blast all the anode sludge free from the plates, and it'll clean itself if you run it that way for a long period of time. I'll switch it out every 6 months or so. Sometimes every month I do it. But anyway, I'm going to shut up. Let's get on with it. We're going to basically just fire this thing up. I'm going to try it at 12 amps. I don't know if I'm going to get a foam over it that high. That's quite a bit of gas production. That's right around 3.5 to 4 liters per minute. So we'll see how this goes. And then we're going to weigh the sample. I'm going to try to keep all the little parts. Some really weird stuff's going to happen here. If you guys haven't seen my last video, a very strange boiling crawdad hole comes growing off the surface of this. It's pretty interesting. Okay, I'm having some trouble dialing in right at 12 amps. It still has to stabilize. This is the size of the flame for reference, without it being exposed to anything. And it's so dark that you can't really. So a pretty good sized flame. Kind of hard to see it. It's about 11.94 amps. And that's about 1,000 watts of power here. I really need to get some shades for this. Okay, and we are off. Some really crazy stuff's gonna start happening here. I'm already blind. I looked at this thing for like half a second. It sounds like my torch is a little bit too much gas coming out of that nozzle size. I need to bring this down, guys. We're over gassing. I can tell by the way it sounds. The pressure's just building up. I'm gonna bring it down back down to 10 amps, fellas. I have a 10 amp tip on here. And that is why it's sounding that way, I think, maybe. Maybe not. No, it's just a fire brick. I honestly don't think we're gonna last a half hour, Matt. I don't think I got a big enough piece, dude. I mean, the thing's already showing severe signs of destruction. I'm just adding water to my my coolant system here. You don't want this tip getting super hot. That's not a good thing. Okay, we're gonna let Mezcal's experiment run here for a minute, and we're gonna focus on the primary objective here, which was to observe the features of this aviation oil. Look at them bubbles, man. They're popping fantastic. They're popping very fast. Anyone who's sat there and looked at bubbles for hours and hours, angry and mad, knows that these aren't the type of bubbles that get you mad. Just something about these ones. So we're doing good so far. We're at 99 degrees, and the fact that the cell is this hot and the bubbles have only gone that far out, man, look at that. We've just burned a hole through the fire brick. I don't know what I was talking about there, but it had something to do with overheating. I'm gonna turn the fan on this thing. And yeah, that didn't work out too good, guys. We have burned a hole clean through that sucker already. So I don't know if I want to bother even letting that marinate. I've got a bigger piece here, but I was under the impression it would be easier to measure a change with a smaller piece. Ooh, something interesting is going on. Some melting's taking place in the ceiling that's somewhat obstructing the, you know, you couldn't ask for worse lighting on this particular experiment. Okay, I don't have time to edit this, fellas. So give me a break on that, please. I gotta go to work tomorrow, and I want to get this video out tonight. So we're not gonna do any editing on this. Man, some really weird stuff's happening now. The hole has now caved in on itself. Oops, I gotta cool that torch tip down. Keep that sucker wet, man. Okay, the hole has resealed itself off. It may decide to burn back open here in a minute. I don't know why this is so exciting. Okay, I don't like those flames flashing back at my torch tip like that. That's bad. We don't want that happening. I can feel the heat from here. Okay, so far so good on the foam, guys. We have raised up a little bit. I don't think I'm gonna let that concern me. My bubbler's very low, but I'm not too worried about that. Oh man, we're at 11 amps here. I can't see if that's watts or volt amps. Yeah, I think that's just watts. We're at 11 amps on that bad boy. I'm getting a little worried here that we might get a flashback. I'm trying to look at this through the camera only. Oh man, I just moved it. Dude, you killed it. Jeez. I'm gonna shut the lights off for a second. Let's take a look at it like that. Yeah. It's not doing the funny crawdad hole thing I told you about. It's making a liar out of me is what it's doing. Oh, there it goes. It just blew a hole back through for a second there. It had it. About lost the camera. Big old flame came shooting out the back. Yeah, I gotta turn the lights back on. So to make sure we're not losing the cell over here. Okay. I'm liking what I see there. You probably can't see that. Get some lights here. As I said, I apologize for the editing that is not going to take place on this video, fellas. I just don't have time tonight. So far, so good. That's an acceptable level of that foam column. We're stabilizing at 100 degrees. This torch could run for days, it appears, at this level. I have a tip on there right now that runs on a maximum. Okay, we're good on pressure there. You don't want any pressure in these things, ever. If you build one that pressures up, then you own yourself a nice nippy little electric bomb. There we go, 11 amps still. 788 watts. Now, how much heat's actually getting to the specimen, I don't know, and I'm not going to sit here and debate that. So we're going to say it's 1,000 watts, or 700 watts that's depicted. I understand there are many factors. I don't understand why it's not growing this time. If you've seen the last video, we got this strange little column grew up out of the stone, and it might have something to do with the way it's, oh man, I can't have that happening. Shit. I had to shut it down, guys. The flame was caving in on itself. I can't have this tip get that hot. It's doing it again. It's throwing the flame right back on the tip of the torch. It doesn't seem to be too hot. That bead of water is staying on the torch tip. One thing about oxyhydrogen torches is that this is not the maximum temperature setting, guys. All the way in here. And I don't want to do that to the torch, but when you get that tip in there like that, that's the hottest section. You can almost see the inner cone on an oxyhydrogen flame, but barely. There is an inner cone, and it is hotter. Like way back here, that's nothing compared to touching that inner cone on an oxyhydrogen flame. I'm going to tell you right now. It's about a 1/8 inch to a 1/16 of an inch little cone in there. It's kind of blue right now. You can't really see it. I'm going to turn on the rest of the lights, guys. We're going to check the torch out, see where we stand on that. Because that's the main show here. We're just helping our brother out on the other deal. Oh man, I am in love again. This thing can obviously run for days. I mean, we're stabilized. We're steady state here. We're moving up to 11.26 amps there, which is odd because the temperature hasn't changed in the slightest, and usually you won't observe those differences without the two of them altering. Yeah, there's our gas production. Now I know a lot of you may be concerned with the depth of my bubbler. Bear in mind, when a bubbler detonates, these bubbles down here in the water are compressed by the shock wave. So their size is reduced to about 1/10 of that. I guarantee you, if you were to watch a bubbler detonate with a high-speed camera, the concussion from the oxyhydrogen would crush those bubbles so small that they would be 100 miles away from each other, basically. They would never daisy chain, even though I only have that much. Guaranteed. It just won't happen. Yes, oxyhydrogen does induce a vacuum, but only subsequent to the detonation of compression. There is a compressive detonation. All that HHO vacuum stuff is kind of, there's a lot more to it. It's only because you're creating steam that then condenses you get a vacuum. There's no magic vacuum explosion. It's just not happening. Okay, we're getting that funny cone thing. It's starting to happen now. It has something to do with where the torch is, maybe. The crawdad hole is now under construction. A lot of that water is probably just from me cooling off the torch, which is quite warm. As I said, I'm not doing this any real justice because the tip's kind of far away, but we are now growing the crawdad hole. Maybe the tip was just too close to grow one before. So fire breaks some pretty incredible stuff. If this were a stone or a piece of granite or something, it would have shattered by now. I heated some rocks up the other day, some limestone, to try to make a real limelight, and the thing shattered after a while. This stuff here basically just vitrifies into glass. A very heat shock resistant glass, I might add. Okay, fellas, here's the scoop. As far as the anti-foam on the oxyhydrogen torch, I'm calling this a success, a full-blown success. Can I run this thing at 20 amps or the 3,000 watts that the initial build stated it can do? No. I can only do periodic runs. The foam will just get so high, it will shoot out this nozzle when I'm doing 6-7 liters per minute like that. It just... Sorry, fellas, I ran out of data there. What I was trying to get at is that hydrogen gas has the lowest specific heat of any gas there is. Though it is said to be the hottest flame, it can even melt carbon. Something I don't think an oxyhydrogen torch can do, or an oxyacetylene torch can do. It doesn't have a lot of specific heat. It's like the oxyacetylene torch trying to heat up a swimming pool versus a bonfire. Now, an oxyacetylene gas would be analogous to the bonfire. It has more heat energy. It's also a really hot gas, but... Okay, Mezcal, your experiment has turned into the star of the show. I'm like totally focused on this at this point. I mean, I'm not like saying anything rude or getting mad at you. I'm kind of curious and stuff. What in the heck is going on here? Look at this thing. Now, I wish you guys could see what I can see. I'm not going to be able to see for much longer if I keep looking at this thing. I know that. Just a glance kills you. There are some very small micro bubbles that can probably only be seen with a macro lens that I do not have. We're going back to the device here. Let me back you guys out. You got tunnel vision so bad you don't ever know what the hell I'm doing. I watch my own videos, I'm like, man, you guys can't see nothing. Like I need to stand 8 feet away. This is the device that's causing all this action. This thing can push 3,000 watts if you would dare pull that much power out of your wall. I have a 25 amp breaker in this garage. It might even be a 30, so I could do it, but it's a dumb thing to do. It was rated for emergency burns for periodic jobs, just for real short in and out. To do that much, the diodes are rated at that much. Reminds me, how hot are these diodes? Oh man, I could lick one of those. Not hot at all. They're warm. We're at 102 degrees. We're pretty much heating up the whole garage here. We've moved on up to about 11.6 amps AC. Now, the amount of amperage that's available for electrolysis right now, you guys, is huge. It's not what you think. We are currently running at a plate volt gap of about 2.4 volts. So, if we are at 834 watts, 834 divided by 2.4 volts per gap, that's going to tell us how many amps is passing through each plate, or how many amps is passing from one side of the cell to the next. 347 amps of electrolysis power is taking place, because electrolysis cell actually behaves as a transformer at the same time. That is the amperage that has to pass from the negative to the positive side if you're going to run this thing at 840 watts. There's no way out of it. People argue with me all the time, and I'm telling you right now, that is the magic behind what makes a dry cell so awesome when it comes to production. They're beasts, man. They're cranking out 347 amps. It's acting as a transformer, you guys. A battery, the same way a battery acts as a transformer, and you add cells together and you get a certain voltage and amperage. This thing is turning my 11.6 amps AC into 347 amps of DC current. Now, I did not use any diode losses in that equation, so give me a break in the comment section on that. This is just a hypothetical explanation of, it's probably around 330 amps at the very least, maybe a little bit less, probably closer to 300 amps actually, because the DC power is probably actually half that, so I take that back. 11.6 amps, when you check the DC current with my clamp meter, it's probably only showing about 7 amps of DC current. So that would be a little bit different if we would do the wattage of that. I can't give you the wattage of the DC right now, only with this, because you can't do volts times amps to get DC wattage on a system like this. Forgive me for shaking the camera too. I don't know what this is all about. I'm always like shaking you like, you understand me? 2 volts. I don't know why I do that. I do the camera shake. I try to stop doing that and I catch it in editing. I'm like, dude, you're not shaking a child into submission here. Not that you should ever do that, or would I, but that was a horrible analogy. I'm getting myself in trouble for no reason here. Well, there is Mezcal's experiment. Man, I forgot to cool the torch off. It hasn't blown up on me yet. I just accidentally moved it, which totally kills the experiment. I gotta stop doing that. I'm going blind. I'm only looking at it through the camera, but occasionally I had to take a peek, and I assure you that will blind you right there. It is like, it will burn a bead in your retina for an hour, dude. It's that intense. It is extremely intense. I wish I had one of those meters like Abby has. He's got these meters and stuff. He's done a really cool video on examining the dangers of infrared light from a torch with just glasses on. I might try and find a link in the description for that, because it kind of has a little bit to do with what I'm exposing myself here. I'm so happy right now that this torch is working, you guys. Anyone who's followed my channel for the past 9 years knows that I've been messing with these things for 9 years, and I have a lot of videos on foam. I put the spa treatment stuff in there. All that crap ruins your hydrogen torch. Don't do it. It ain't worth it. Well, Mezcal, I think I'm about to shut this down, brother. I know I told you I'd give you a half hour, but I got some bad news. I totally lost track of time. I don't know what's going on. I think we've got about a half hour of footage in so far, though. This torch is obviously not going to foam over. I'm at 104 degrees. And I'm not going to edit a single moment out of this video, so, because I just don't have the time this time, fellas. So, perhaps if we end up with a half hour of footage, then, oops. Man, I just got cooked. Oh yeah, we are growing quite the pillar here. It's changing on us. I ruined it when I bumped into it. If you don't bump it, it makes something much more symmetrical than what we're looking at. That ugliness is from me bumping it everywhere. But I think I'm gonna shut this down and let's take a look at it. There you go. Ooh, that thing's just crackling. I gotta shut this torch off before I blow us up. I wish you could hear the sound of glass crinkling like I can. That is so weird. I'm not going to touch it. Can you guys see the little bubbles? They're so tiny. The camera still isn't quite picking them up. They're super, super small, you guys. And I would presume that what's happening is that where the flame actually hits the rock is boiled and bubbles grow. And then as they are pushed to the side from rock boiling underneath, they cool. And the continuous formation of gas at the base of that hole is pushing a column outward of solidifying bubbles. That's just a theory of what's happening there. Let me show you what I mean here, maybe. Like you've got the, we'll start off halfway through the process. So you've got this hole, you've got this high heat hydrogen flame causing some boiling in here. The rock boils, but the second the rock leaves that superheated zone right here, it solidifies a little bit. And new bubbles are formed. Like there's always bubbles happening right here at this interface, and they're pushing out this way, and they're making the little crawdad hole that we're seeing, the flames coming inside of it. The bubbles are happening right here, and that's how it's boring the hole. As soon as they leave this superheated zone that is no longer capable of boiling fire brick, for crying out loud. I mean, that's hot. If you're boiling your fire brick, which I would imagine could very easily be in these zones, super hot right in here, but not hot enough to boil the fire brick. So, if you've got any interesting theories as to what in the heck is going on here, let me know. Now, I don't think it's cool enough to weigh it just yet. But, yeah, it's probably not. I'm going to touch it. It is fire brick, though, you know. Okay, well, what in the hell? Unbelievable. Okay, so I don't want to drop it because I'll ruin it. Let's see what we got here. I hope this doesn't affect the scale of me not tearing it out. Usually if you start it with your tear tray, the transducer acknowledges the tear. We were at 6.54 if my brain is working. Check that out. Well there, Mescal, once again. Looks like you boiled this much fire brick today. Literally turned it into a gas. 6.54 or 55, did I say? So if I were to do magic math and put the numbers right there, damn it, I'm going to have to do some kind of editing there. I'm not smart enough. Crap. We don't have time. Maybe some fellow commenter will do the math for us. Help me out, brother. All right, so that was pretty freaking cool, you guys. Now watch this. Stuff's probably not very good. So we getting the dust in the air, it's probably carcinogenic. So we burn a hole through this rock, you guys, and then their ceiling caved in on itself. I don't know if I could bust this open any, and we could take a look at the lightning strike, if you want to call it. Ooh, yeah, there it is. You can see it melted all the way through, because everything else is porous like this except for that. My camera is so unsuited for this type of work, and I apologize for that, you guys, but there we have it. That was actually kind of cool. There you go, mezcal. We're definitely boiling measurable amounts of fire brick. That's pretty impressive. Actually, I was not expecting that much, man. I'll be honest with you. That was kind of as cool as your rust HHO flame idea. Remember when you had me put the flame on the rust and measure the difference of the voltage? That was cool. So there it is. I'm shutting this down. I'm going to get this posted, you guys. The aviation oil is a valid foam reducer that does not appear to mess with anything in the cell. However, oil can cause problems elsewhere. I don't know the long-term effects of the oil on polyethylene tubing. I do know the long-term effects on goop glue, which is absolutely detrimental. But nonetheless, I am so happy this is a success. I'm probably only going to post any further footage on this to show what the maximum output of this torch is before it just starts foaming over. Probably going to be around 13-14 amps AC, but I do not know yet. At any rate, if something weird happens, I will keep you guys updated. And as I said, the comment section of this video is going to have a pinned comment with the current information regarding the experiment and the utilization of mobile velocity number 10 aviation oil as a foam suppressant. It's not a foam mitigation or a foam anti-foaming agent, I wouldn't say, because it only suppresses the foam, but it does it just enough.